There's nothing I enjoy more than a good AI thriller. Those provocative films that play on our mistrust of machines and the fear that technology is out of control and simply can't be stopped. It's a fear that's even more acute now than ever before, as AI begins to furnish those machines with the ability to think and to make decisions that are all their own.
Oh my God.
Hollywood has long been aware of this very human fear and played on it multiple times in the late 20th century. The colossal box office hits of Judgment Day and The Matrix I'm sure you're already familiar with, but other films in this top 5 might not be quite so familiar. And the positions of each film in this top 5 list has been decided not by me, but by subscribers to my channel, who took part in a community poll on this very subject. At the end of this video, you'll discover which of these AI classics is their absolute favorite. Trust me, I love each and every one of them, and that's why they're in my DVD collection. But because of YouTube's rule that only 4 titles can take part in a community poll, I was forced to choose the 5th film in the list, and that decision was based only on the need to avoid a split vote with its sequel. The idea for 1984's The Terminator came to James Cameron in a dream, or to be more exact, a feverish nightmare, and I can show you that nightmare because not only is Cameron a great screenwriter and director, he's also an accomplished artist who storyboarded the film himself. It was Cameron's view that AI had the potential to be a competitor to the human race, and perhaps even the master of it. That is nightmare fuel to many, and Hollywood loves a good nightmare. But Cameron needed a screenplay if he was to attract a Hollywood backer, and his first attempt at a screenplay for The Terminator had strong similarities with what would become its sequel, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. The original draft had 2 different Terminators being sent back in time. The first was a conventional cyborg which would be destroyed by the film's hero, Reese, but a second, more advanced Terminator would be sent to replace it, one that was made of liquid metal, just as in Judgment Day. Cameron dropped this idea when he realized that the special effects of the early 1980s weren't capable of delivering his vision. He focused on the cyborg Terminator instead, expanding its role and making it a more formidable opponent. In the end, the Terminator would be played by an actor who was currently under consideration to play the part of the film's hero, Reese.
Talking about along the lines of me playing the heroic character.
Right. On the back of my mind, I was thinking the Terminator, you were thinking the Terminator, but we sit and we have this polite lunch because we've never met each other, and neither one of us mentions it, right? And then we both go back to our guys and say,
Terminator, your future is in his hands. The Terminator, rated R. The #1 movie in the USA is now playing everywhere.
The Terminator was a success in its cinematic release in 1984, and an even bigger success in its afterlife on home video and television. It also became the prime symbol of AI gone wrong, with Cameron's nightmare vision warning of the dangers of our ever-increasing reliance on machines. The Matrix was the brainchild of 2 brothers, Larry and Andy Wachowski, who these days are the Wachowski sisters, Lana and Lily. They were bouncing off the critical acclaim that welcomed their first co-written and co-directed feature, Bound. Warner Brothers had acquired the rights to both Bound and The Matrix in 1994, and the success of the former effectively greenlighted the latter. Casting for the lead role of Neo began as early as 1996 and initially focused on the rising star of Will Smith. But as Smith willingly acknowledges, he failed to grasp the full potential of The Matrix and ultimately turned down the part of Neo. Leonardo DiCaprio was then offered the role, but he too found reasons not to accept. The final battle was a clash between 2 sets of brothers and 2 big stars of the 1990s. The Warner Brothers studio wanted Keanu Reeves to play Neo, but the Wachowskis preferred Johnny Depp. In the end, the studio would have its way. The Matrix already has a long list of influences, but I think that I might be able to add to it through the printed memorabilia that I have in my media collection. After they completed work on the Matrix trilogy in 2003, the Wachowskis co-wrote and co-produced V for Vendetta, based on the graphic novel by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. That colorized graphic novel was largely created for US audiences, but its original form was a black and white strip in the British monthly anthology comic Warrior, which I suspect the Wachowskis were aware of back in the 80s. But V for Vendetta isn't the only strip that Alan Moore wrote for Warrior. He also wrote Marvel Man, which is often retitled as Miracle Man outside the UK. In issue 17 of Warrior from March 1984, an episode of Marvel Man titled The Red King Syndrome occasionally echoes in The Matrix. In the story, the Marvel Man family is part of a long-term scientific study of which they are blissfully unaware. Their lives are simply the product of a computer-generated guidance program which shields them from the truth. But their subconscious minds are increasingly trying to wake them up to that truth through absurdity and impossibility. This film has influenced many others in its stead, not least in its groundbreaking creation of bullet time. The Matrix DVD and my other memorabilia are prized items in my collection, and the film more than deserves its place in this series.
Now, thanks to this wonder of science, man no longer...
Back in the 1970s, while waiting for a favorite TV show to start, I caught the end of a film that simply drew me in and absolutely mesmerized me for its final 20 minutes. That film was Colossus the FORBIN project, which tells the story of a supercomputer and its creator, Dr. Charles FORBIN. He created Colossus to take over US national security and respond to foreign threats in an emotionless and effective manner, even to the extent of using the nation's nuclear arsenal as a last resort. In Colossus, FORBIN has created a supercomputer with unlimited potential for learning, and it wastes no time accessing all available information. It processes that information at a speed far beyond human capacity and deduces that there is another system like it. Colossus has found Guardian, another supercomputer belonging to the Soviet Union, that other great power of the time. The two machines are given permission to communicate with each other, but not before the president gives the head of the CIA a grilling about his agency's failure to detect Guardian before Colossus did, in a prediction that computers will far outstrip human information gathering ability in the secret services. Colossus forges a link with Guardian, and they both bond, as you would expect, through mathematics. They quickly create an inter-system language, of which there are plenty of horror stories to be found today, most of them relating to the famously untrue Facebook report in 2017. After a failed attempt to control Colossus, the supercomputer demands visual and audible access to FORBIN at all times, raising issues of privacy that we face today with AI. Another issue the film raises is that of a supercomputer designing new and more powerful computers than itself.
Something extraordinary is happening.
What is it?
Colossus has just turned on all graphic devices and is producing drawings, logic diagrams.
I'm sending a design for another system.
From way back in 1970, this film predicts many of the issues and challenges that we face with AI today. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. With only 2 contenders left for the top spot, I'd like to pause and tell you about the future of this channel. I'll be posting a new top 5 video on the first day of every month, and there'll be regular community polls for you to decide the outcome of future top 5s. My DVD collection includes both films and TV shows, covering every genre from comedy to horror. The future looks bright for my channel, and I hope you'll like and subscribe to be part of it. But right now, let's find out which of these titles was given the top spot by my subscribers. The nightmare for writer-director James Cameron didn't lie with AI in this sequel to his surprise 1984 hit. It lay in trying to get this legendary film off the drawing board in the first place. And even when he did manage to do that, the production schedule was so tight that it regularly sparked his famously short temper, to the extent that crew members wore specially printed t-shirts like a badge of honor. His co-writer, William Wisher, who makes an appearance in Judgment Day, thought that the idea of having the young John Connor bond with Schwarzenegger's T-800 was something of a joke. But Cameron saw the move as an echo of the Tin Man receiving a heart in The Wizard of Oz. One of the many omissions from the final screenplay was a 9-minute opening sequence of a machine propelling a Terminator back in time. And it's a shame that sequence was never shot, because judging by Cameron's impressive designs for vehicles and machines in both the Terminator and Aliens, his concept for a time machine would certainly have been something to see. Cameron wanted an unknown to play the young John Connor, and after an extensive search, Edward Furlong was chosen for the role. As well as being taught to ride a motorbike, Furlong was trained to handle and shoot firearms. Another newcomer to the franchise was Joe Morton, who would play cybernetics expert Dr. Miles Dyson, the creator of the chip that would lead to the creation of Skynet. That role, though, was initially offered to Denzel Washington, who would turn it down because he felt the character was riddled with fear. As ever, Cameron would include actors he'd worked with before, in this case, Jeanette Goldstein, who played Vasquez in Aliens and the part of John's foster mother in Judgment Day. Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton were the most crucial returnees to the franchise, but the hero of the original Terminator, Kyle Reese, played by Michael Biehn, also made a return in the form of a dream sequence alongside Linda Hamilton. Sadly, that scene never made the final cut. Judgment Day is a renowned landmark for early CGI, but the sequence that it's most famous for, the nuclear attack, is a mixture of CGI, practical effects, and miniatures. This sequence is still considered to be one of the best depictions of a nuclear explosion ever created on screen. This long-awaited sequel to the Terminator was greeted with open arms by fans of the original and by newcomers to the franchise alike. Its theatrical release catapulted it up the all-time box office charts to become the third highest-grossing film in history in its time. Welcome to Westworld, Michael Crichton's nightmare vision of a theme park of the future, partly inspired by a 1960s trip to Disneyland to marvel at its animatronic wonders.
What WED does is often called Imagineering, the blending of creative imagination with technical know-how. The audio animatronic performers in the Pirates of the Caribbean show are an example of Imagineering at work.
In Crichton's mind, and he had a very fertile mind, the future of such creations would be limitless in the age of computers. He was mesmerized by these machines that were designed to be as human-like as possible, and his productive trip would help to stoke two big ideas, both tied to the notion of theme park gone wrong. Though I see Westworld as one of the best examples of Hollywood's AI nightmares, Crichton never intended it to be a warning about AI. It was a film about greed, with the issue being the failure to close down the park, even though there was a clear and growing danger to human life. The film's limited budget was restrictive, but as a first-time Hollywood director, Crichton was forced to put up and shut up and get the film shot in 30 days.
It's fun.
Despite the limited budget, Crichton managed to secure the services of Hollywood legend Yul Brynner to play the part of the robot gunslinger, and he played off expertly against the Vacationers, played by Richard Benjamin and James Brolin. Westworld's plot involved a problem that was largely unfamiliar to most people before the home computing boom of the 1980s. A computer virus, and Brynner's gunslinger was badly infected.
Then he starts killing. He starts repeating what his enemy did. Then he starts smiling.
Crichton was disappointed with his first cut of the film and slashed its length to less than 90 minutes. And he was right to do so because the film performed well at the US box office, generating more than $11 million.
I don't think the premise is far-fetched at all. In fact, whether or not anybody will actually build a resort like Westworld, exactly like with robots and stuff, is more a question. It's not a question of technology, because the technology is essentially there. I mean, if you go see Abraham Lincoln at Disneyland, you know, it's pretty good. And they can do better than that now.
Westworld claimed a massive 53% of all votes to become the unchallenged #1 in this poll. Let us all know in the comments which is your personal favorite from this top 5. Thanks for watching.